Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to part 10 of the Artificial Intelligence course, Unit 3. And we're going to be talking about AI usage in this unit and specifically prompt engineering. So, this is phase 1 of prompt engineering, and let's get started. Okay, so let's start off today with just the general question: what is prompt engineering? So, prompt engineering is the practice of designing and refining your AI inputs, which we typically call the prompts that you give, that you write, that you type, that you even speak to artificial intelligence, large language models to get the most accurate, useful, or creative output results as possible. So, the idea is, how can we craft an input to get the best possible output? Think about like knowing how to ask the right questions, as the same AI model can give very different responses depending on how a question is phrased or structured or even contextualized. It matters because even with powerful AI models, vague or poorly structured prompts often lead to generic, off target, or inconsistent results. Good prompt engineering bridges the gap between what you mean and what the model understands. It is relevant across many domains, whether it's writing tasks or coding tasks or data analysis or customer support, all types of tasks that we are trying to apply to the AI process. As those AI tools become more embedded in your workflow, prompt engineering is an increasingly valuable and practical skill for using AI effectively. So before we even think about writing a prompt, we have to have a goal in mind. Otherwise, why would we even be writing a prompt to begin with? Think of it like you don't ask a question unless you actually wanted an answer. So just before you go and ask a teacher or ask your parents or your boss an important question that you need a specific answer to, you should think, what about your goals? What is the goal you're trying to accomplish here? And as well, determine if you would be successful in getting what you wanted. So, not just a goal, but a way to determine whether or not you're successful. So, let's go over some details of what you need to have in mind before you even start prompt engineering. So, one framework we could use, and this is used in many sort of areas, including education, and it was originally designed in business, is the concept of the SMART goal, and SMART being the acronym. This is a framework that is used to guide the setting of very clear, actionable, and obtainable objectives or goals. So the S means specific, clear, and well defined. M means measurable, where you can actually track your progress. A means achievable, meaning it's realistic and a possible goal. R means it's relevant, it aligns with your long-term objective. And T means it's time bound. So there's actually a deadline so you know whether or not the goal has been successful within a time frame. So here's some examples of vague goals versus SMART goals. So the vague goal, I want to get fit, or versus a SMART goal, I want to run 5 kilometers in under 30 minutes by July 1st by following a 12-week training plan. So if we go back, you can see how that SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Let's look at another one. I want to save money. That's a very vague goal. But the SMART goal is I want to save $2,400 over the next 2 years by setting aside $100 from every monthly paycheck. And finally, let's look at one more. I want to increase our sales at a company. That's a vague goal versus we will increase monthly sales revenue by 15% within the next quarter by launching a new email marketing campaign. So the idea is, before you write a prompt, have a more framed and more specific goal in mind. So the SMART framework is one potential framework. Other is the OKR, Objectives and Key Results Framework. You can see a general outline of it there. And even prompt engineering itself and prompt AIs like Claude have specific prompt engineering overviews that really help guide you before you even sit down to write your first prompt. Look, it's not a matter of a specific goal framework. It's a matter of having some of those basic ideas in mind. Have a defined goal in mind so we can determine what are we really asking with our prompt. And Could we measure it as a success when we get our results? How we measure or determine that result can depend on several things, right? Maybe we assign a percentage to the success, like I achieved 75% of my goal. Or we make a very simple determination, like I think I met my goal or I didn't meet my goal. Or make a scale determination, like this meets my goal, but it's too much or too big to achieve. So the idea again is having a goal in mind that we can measure and basically determine whether or not we were successful. So if prompt engineering is the art and science of designing and refining inputs or prompts for an AI model, such as a large language model, to produce a desired, accurate, and high quality output, in this unit, we're going to examine the technique and several tips and frameworks for using effective prompts to get the best results out of those AI systems. And I'm going to summarize these into 5 categories, although certainly they're not necessarily distinctive categories. So you could maybe visualize them as a Venn diagram rather than distinctive. And the 5 are: 1, task, the core directive telling the AI what task to perform. This is where we all start with prompt engineering. 2, context, the background information or specific details to help the AI understand the scenario. 3, constraints, rules or parameters to limit the scope and the format of the output. 4, examples, providing examples or shots or references of the desired input-output behavior. And last, the iterative process, the repeating of the prompting for continual improvement. So these are going to be the 5 areas, and we're going to spend time on each of these. Each will be in a phase. Today we're looking at phase 1, the task. So the task is that first area of prompt engineering we're going to examine today. It's the initial thing you're asking. This is where most people start when working with AI, prompting or talking to the AI. It can be described as the core directive telling the AI what task to perform by adding action words or tokens for the AI to incorporate. This is similar to the way we talk to each other as humans, or maybe a similar way to the way we've initially been writing Google searches over the last 20 years, giving the AI the instructions and telling it what we want to do. So we want that task prompt to be clear and we want it to be specific. When you write a task prompt, you're essentially giving AI a verb-driven instruction, and that's the key, verb-driven. And the action word, or the verb, is the engine driving the whole thing. So a lot of AI language models, and the generative models, are pattern matchers. They're trained on enormous amounts of human writing, and different action words activate fundamentally different response patterns. It's like different buttons on a control panel. If you press generate versus you write summarize, they will result in different actions. So saying explain and compare and write all produce structurally different outputs, even if everything else in the prompt is identical. This is why the task component is the foundation of a good prompt. Everything builds off the initial task. All right, so let's dig even deeper into that task-based prompting, or the phase 1, with a look at action words. So the action words, or the tokens, are not interchangeable. Each one carries a built-in expectation that will change the output in terms of format, depth, and purpose. They fall into several broad categories. Let's go over a few of them. Generative and creative words. These tell the AI to produce something, to generate something new. These words could include write, draft, create, generate, compose, design, build, or even invent. Then there's analytical or evaluative words. They tell the AI to examine, to assess. These words could include verbs like analyze, evaluate, assess, critique, examine, diagnose, and even identify. And then there's explanatory or instructional words. These tell the AI to make something more understandable. And some examples of those action words or verbs could be explain, describe, define, summarize, clarify, simplify, or break down. There's comparative or organizational words. These tell the AI to sort and to structure the response, like compare, contrast, rank, categorize, list, outline, organize. And there's even transformative words. These tell the AI to take something existing and change it. So rewrite, revise, translate, convert, condense, expand, adapt, and improve. The idea is we have these action words that generate different responses within the AI itself. The precision in your wording determines the shape of that output before the AI reads anything else. So here's an example. Describe the causes of World War I and analyze the causes of World War I. Those two different prompts will produce meaningful different responses. One is more observational and one is more interpretive or evaluative. So here's some key principles for writing a clear, specific, directive task prompt. First thing, lead with the action word. Put that verb first, okay? It will orient the AI immediately and prevents ambiguity about what kind of response is expected. So a good example is explain how photosynthesis works. So we have the verb right at the front, driving the rest of the prompt, versus a weak example, photosynthesis. I want to know about how it works. So the AI is going to have trouble finding the verb and really driving the content afterwards. Second tip, be specific about the form of output, as the action word alone sometimes isn't enough. So naming the output format adds another layer of precision. So here's some good examples. Write, there's our action verb, a persuasive letter. Draft, a bulleted summary. Create, a step-by-step tutorial. So we're adding another layer with the layer of precision of a specific form of the output. Third tip, name the subject with precision, as vague subjects produce vague responses. So the more specifically you identify what the task is about, the more targeted the output. So let's look at a good example. Explain, there's your action word, the relationship between Arctic sea ice loss and global weather pattern disruption. Or versus a weak example, explain climate change. It's not enough precision in the targeted subject. Fourth tip is avoid multitask blur. This idea is each additional action word that you layer in dilutes the directiveness of the prompt. You're giving it too many tasks. Strong task prompts generally do one thing. So a good example is compare and then make the explanation, versus weaker example would be explain and compare. We're diluting it away too much, so it now has too many tasks to do and try and synthesize them together. So if you want a very clear response, use one or just a few action words so you don't dilute it too much. And the fifth and final tip is match the action word to your actual goal. So we talked about goals earlier in this lecture. So ask yourself, do I want something created or something explained or something evaluated or something transformed? That should have been the goal you had before you wrote the prompt. Choosing the wrong action word is going to lead you away from your goal, and it's the most common reason that a response misses the mark. Okay, so let's wrap up today by looking at some examples of task prompting. Varied examples of strong task prompts. Notice in these how the task alone shapes what you'd expect to receive. These are intentionally different and varied examples in subject, in action word, and in output form. So let's look at a generative prompt, task prompt. Write a short fictional news article reporting on the invention of the telephone as if it were published in 1876. Analytical. Analyze the rhetorical strategies used in Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. Explanatory. Explain the difference between machine learning and traditional programming to someone with no technical background. Comparative. Compare the economic causes of World War I and World War II, identifying what they had in common and where they diverged. And transformative and adaptive. Rewrite the following paragraph so it's appropriate for a grade 6 reading level. Organizational. Categorize the following list of historical events by whether they were primarily political, economic, or social in nature. Generative. with a specific form. Design a 5-question quiz on the water cycle, including an answer key. Evaluative. Evaluate the following student essay response and identify its 2 strongest points and its 2 most significant weaknesses. The one thread running through all of these examples is basically the same. We have one clear action word and a specific subject, and often a named output form. Focus on the first 2, clear action word, specific subject, and when possible, add a named output form. That triple combination is what makes a task prompt do real directed work before any other of our phases or any of our layers of prompt engineering even gets added. The task alone could be potentially the most important part or the most important phase of prompt engineering. That is our first tip. So we will be looking over this unit at the other 4 areas of prompt engineering: context, constraints, examples, and iteration. But today we focused on task, which could be considered the most important. And let's go to the 3 important things you need to have with a task. You need to have a measurable goal, a defined measurable goal before you even write your task prompt. You need to have clear action words and lead with the action word. You should have a specific subject in mind, okay, with detailed sort of specificity. And then a named output form when necessary to really direct the initial task towards the prompt. Thanks, everybody. That concludes our look at phase 1 of prompt engineering, and I hope you have a great day.